Appendix B, field identification of railway defects. Railway defects observed in the track. Appendix presents definitions relating to the rail. Brief description of the common railway defects observed in the track. Figure B1 represents a common rail nomenclature. B2 shows the relative positions of the planes through the rail. You have your running surface, your head, your side, your fillet, and your web in the base. And rail nomenclature. But B2, not all the rail's defects. With feats identified in the defect description presented a appendix in table 7.1 of the standard presents the listing of the rail defects, operating obstruction remedy actions. With B2, not all rail defects are critical. A critical defect is rail defect with the effect of safety trams. Non-critical defects that occur in the rail and do not affect the structural integrity of the safety of the trains operating over the defect. The non-critical defects are identified in the defect description presented in the appendix table 7.1 of the standard representative listings of rail defects, operating restrictions, remedial actions, relative position of the planes through a rail, vertical plane, transverse plane, and horizontal plane. These defects lying in the vertical and horizontal plane are classed as longitude. Field identification of rail defects. The description presented in alphabetical to assist the identifying of defects in the rail and the track of the refer to the TM5627 AFM 9133 for additional information. Bolt hole crack description: a progressive fracture originating at a bolt hole. Appearance in the track of the bolt hole cracks are not visible until the bolt or the joint bar has removed, unless the defective has progressed between the yard beyond the bar. The recognized hairline crack extends in the bolt hole. These are broken bases, the bolt hole cracks. Broken bases, any break in the base of the rail. 2, the appearance of the track generally appears in the half moon crack in the between break in the rail base, whether it illustrates these different appearances of the broken base. You have a general broken base, and then over here the A, B, and split, and then a small broken base. Complete broken rail description: complete transverse separation of the head web base of the rail. Appearance of the track may appear for the hairline running completely around the rail, usually accompanied in bleeding separation of the rail breaking through the broken end of the ended battered. See figure B5. B5 is general appearance of a broken rail. Compound fissures, the transfer defects, corrosion, description of decay, corroding of the metal of the web base and the rail, appearance in the track for the pits or cavities upper base. The web is in advance for the stage is significant with the material evident. The corrugation of the corrugation, description of repeated wave-like pattern running surface of the rail. Corrugations develop as a long period of time, and a number of factors contributed to the development of corrugations are the actual dependent of the track operation conditions. The corrugations are not critical defects. Appearance in the track: small, hard, bright or short pitch ridges along with the running surfaces. The railway anywhere from 2 to 8 inches apart, usually less than 1/16 of an inch deep, although individual wise ridges are usually only the short distance apart, but the corrugations extend for the considerable distances. And see bigger B figures. B6, crush heads. Description of the flattening the several inches of the railhead head, usually accompanied by the crushing down of the metal with no signs cracking in the fillet under the head. Appearance in the track generally appears as a flattened with wide head surface, entire head sagging, small cracks and depressions of the running surfaces, in advanced stages of bleeding, cracking being present in the fillet under the head. You have your A and your B and your C. Flattening, widening the head. B, a small crack in the depression, and C, an advanced bleeding of the crack may be under the fillet under the head. A defective weld. Description of the progress to transverse within any area of the two rails between the joining with a rupture of the weld when the improper fusion occurred. Appearance of the track: no outward sign of visible separation reaches the rail surface. The defective weld may be the recognized vertical bleeding crack with the welding portion, rail joint, and the separation reach to the surface. A detailed fracture shell, transverse defects, and battered. Description: damage caused by the wheels striking the striking the railroad ends. Appearance in the track appears to damage the depression of the top of the surface of the railhead at the end of the rail. This is a rail end battered. It's over the split joint. Engine that burns is burned rail. Description: rail that has been scared with the running surface of the friction slipping the locomotive's engine burning is not critical defect. However, the engine burning may lead to an engine burning fracture. Appearance in the track: round or oval rough spots of that tread of the running surface is often source of engine burning fractures. Engine burnings may be deep. Engine burning fracture. Description: progressive fracture on the railway head starting at the point where the engine wheels have slipped or burned at the rail. Appearance in the track: no signs of the transverse separation visible, and the defect reaches the railway surface. An engine of the burning fracture may be recognized by one of the more of the following characteristics: hairline crack of the side of the head of the immediate vicinity of the engine burn at the right angles of the running surface. The crack may be visible on the either field or gauge side of the head. Transverse thermal cracks extending of the burn to the gauge corner down on the side of the head of the least 1/8 of an inch or 0.125 of an inch. Crack or horizontal separation of the field separation of the railway head under the burned area accompanied by one or more of the thermal cracks extending transversely to the gauge corner, figure B10. This is the gauge side of the B and the A, and the field side C. The general appearance of the engine burn fractures. Flaking, progressive horizontal separation of the running surface near the gauge of the corner, accompanied by the scaling, chipping, and flaking shall be confused by the shelling of the flaking occurs on the running surface near the gauge corner, not nearly deep as shelling. Flaking is usually a critical defect. Flaking is not a critical defect. Appearance in the track can be recognized one more than the following characteristics: shallow depressions with irregular edges occurring with the running surface near the edge of the generally flaking with occurring with 1/4 of an inch of the corner rail. Horizontal hairline along with the running surface near the gauge of the corner of the rail head is reassembling small shivers of flowed rail. The description of rolling out of the bead metal beyond the field corner of the brown, breaking down on the underside of the head, flowing into the not a critical defect. Appearance in the track. This is flaking over here in A and B. Horizontal hairline and a shallow depression. Surface metals on the metal flow but together in each side, given in the ceased appearance of the running surface of the field corner. Protruding lip extending along with the length of the rail. In advanced stage of the flow becomes blade-like, jagged, and non-uniform way hanging down and separated the rail head of the web separation. A description: progressive fracture separates the head of the web of the rail. Appearance in the track can be recognized one or more of the following characteristics: in early stage, wavy lines appearing along the fillet under the head, and in this condition develops a small crack appearing along the fillet on either side of the progression longitudinally with a slight irregular turns upward and downward. In advanced stages of bleeding and cracks would end downward longitude separation through the web and may extend to the base. Here you see the flow of the web in the head, the fillet, not under the fillet, but the edge of the head. Here is a general appearance of a head and web separation. So the web and the head have been separated. Horizontal split head, a progressive longitude fracture in the rail head parallel to the running surfaces. 2. Appearance in the track and before the cracking, a moderated size of horizontal split will appear in the flat spot of the running surface, accompanied with a slight widening and dropping of the rail head. The flat spot will be visible as the dark spot in the bright running surfaces. After a crack out of the cracking of the head appears. After a cracking out of the horizontal split of the head of the hairline crack is either both sides of the rail head is usually 1/4 of an inch more than the top of the rail head. The mill defects: deformation, cavity, seams, foreign metal found in the head, web, or the base of the rail. Mill defects are not critical defects. Appearance in the track and deformation of the rail broken out of the area. Inclusion: piped rail. A description of progressive longitude fracture in the rail. Web rail represents vertical separation, seam forming cavity in advanced state of development. Appearance in track. A bulging of the web and either both sides shallow cracks can due to the distortion from the founding and bulging surfaces. A slight sinking railhead may be existent in the pipe. This is a horizontal split head in the middle and the split. General appearance of a piped rail. A and B. B16 cross section of view of the pipe rail. It's bending in the middle of the rear well. The description loss of material, the running surface side of the railhead due to the passage wheels over the rail. Appearance in the track, the rail where appears the rounding surface of the rail, particularly on the gauge side. The side wear, vertically head wear, shelling. Description: progressive horizontal separation of the crack out of any of the level of the gauge sides. Generally, the gauge corner is extended longitudinally, not on the true horizontal vertical crack, an angle related to the amount of the rail wear Shelling is not critical. Defect: appearance of the track. Appearance of one or more of the following dark spots irregular spaced on the gauge side of running surface. Longitude separation. One of the several levels of the upper gauge corner. The discoloration from the bleeding. The rail has been termed shelly. Shelly spots will appear on the field side of the irregular overhanging metal similar flowed rail. Slivers. Description of sliver is the separation of the thin tapered materials surfaces of the head web or the base of the slivers are not critical defects. Appearance in the track: the slivers are on the surface of the railhead of the parallel to the rail length is similar to the wood slivers. Split web: a description of progressive. These are slivers. Split web. Description of progressive fracture through the web in longitude transverse direction. Appearance is the horizontal or vertical bleeding of the cracks in the web. You see the split of the web. Surface of bent rail. The description of the permanent downward bending of the rail ends of the large long-term passage. The track over the track with loose, poorly supported joint surface bent rails and is not a critical defect, cannot be corrected without replacing the rail. Appearance in the track: the downward bending of the railhead near the barrel ends, given the appearance of the low joints. When the track with the surface bent of the rail is surface raised or tamped, the rail ends with soon return to the lower elevation. In more than serious cases, vertical curve in the railhead is still visible in the surface damage. Description: any damaged surfaces of the rail, both running surfaces and external surfaces, caused by the deep engine burns running and the surface striking the rail surfaces. Damage is not normally defected and may lead to a detailed fracture, engine burn fractures. Appearance in the track: deep engine event, burns down, nicks, cuts, and other abnormalities of the surface rail. The torch cut rail. Description: any rail that has been cut or otherwise modified, including bolt holes using acetylene torches other than opening the flame. Appearance of the track: irregular rough ends and the bolt ends. The general appearance of the torch cut rail: transverse defects, compound fissures, transverse fissures, detailed fracture. Description: any progressive a description of a transverse defect is any progressive fracture occurring for the railway head having the transverse separation. However, slightly the exact type of the transverse defect cannot be directly or determined until the rail is broken in examination. Appearance of the track not visible until the defect reaches the outer surface. The transverse defect may be recognized one or more of the following characteristics: a hairline crack on the side of the head at the right angles of the running surface of the fillet under the head, occasionally on the running surface. It's bleeding at the crack, the hairline crack of the gauge corner of the rail head or turn rail. In this condition may occur with the field corner. Numerous small gauge cracks or head crack checks of the present but should not cause a suspicion unless single crack extends much farther down the side or across the running surface. A horizontal hairline crack is the side of the running railhead is horned upward and downward at both ends of the usually accompanied by the bleeding condition of flat spot generally present of the running surface. A hairline crack is steamed downward at the right angle of the horizontal crack caught shelling upper gauge corner of the right head. AA, the vertical split. This is transverse defects of the cracks. Vertical split head. Progressive longitude fracture in the head of the rail perpendicular with the running surface. It's over here. Appearance of the track can be recognized one or more of the following: dark streak in the running surface, widening in the head of the length of the spirit cracks inside of the head may be shown on the side of the singing sign of the sagging in the head, causing a rust streak to appear in the fillet under the head. Ed, a hairline crack in the middle of the railway head in advance of the bleeding crack and is apparent with the rail surface and the fillet under the head. General appearance of a vertical split head. Appendix C details the rail section.